Hey y'all, I'm Dr. Reagan, and welcome back to CRxOWN Talks, your weekly dose of health and healing in Black communities. And in 10 minutes or less, we clear up myths about Black health and break down the healthcare questions you wish you'd asked and the ish they should have told you. Because we're about to be Black, healthy, and crown. Y'all see the shirt. Okay. As of 2025, over a billion with a B women are already in either perimenopause, menopause, or postmenopause. Yet perimenopause and menopause are highly underdiscussed, especially in the Black community, where symptoms are often misunderstood, dismissed, or untreated altogether. So today I'm joined by Dr. Shakeeka Misher, a nurse practitioner with over 20 years in nursing service. She opened up her own clinic this year, y'all. Let's give a clap for her, to treat women specifically in perimenopause and menopause. So we're excited to start this conversation. So welcome, Dr. Misher.
Yeah, well, thank you for the invite, and just excited to join. It's my passion, my love to talk about. And it is what you talked about before, just breaking those stigmas, those biases, things we've grown up with from, or sometimes things we just didn't talk about because it was in what's in your house stayed in your household. And sometimes things within your household still stay within you. Really pulling back all those layers and just thriving is the truth. Just being able to thrive for you in every aspects of life.
Absolutely. So let's bust some myths, right? So what's one myth you want to bust right now about this transition in life called menopause?
One that I want to knock out of the park right now is it's not just all about hot flashes and mood swings. And I think that's the first thing we always go to is that it's menopause, it's hot flashes, it's mood swings. But menopause is an entire movement. It's a transition that affects every part of our body from it and our identity. It's cognitive, it's emotional, it's sexual. It's all kind of, I was reading this past this week and it was like, oh my gosh, menopause is like a slinky. It's all twirls and twists and all kinds of turns. And you feel like you're going somewhere big and you're still in the same spot. And it's that same thing, but you're evolving and becoming someone that you haven't seen yet. And you meet, and you need to have that meet and greet. I hate that myth of that it's just hot flashes and mood swings. We've got to stop minimizing it from it and start talking about the full truth of what menopause is.
I think that's exactly right. It's the minimizing of it, which causes the generational minimizing. So there's a big push right now on perimenopause. You kind of see it everywhere. So let's get some definitions down. Can you define perimenopause, menopause, and postmenopause?
Yes, absolutely. It's so important. Definitions matter of kind of where we are within this transitional phase. So if we start with perimenopause is truly the hormonal roller coaster from it. It starts before your final period, often in your late 30s or 40s. As women of color, starts a lot earlier than that. When we start to see those signs and symptoms, menopause is a single day. It's a point of time. That marks that you've had 12 months with no bleeding, no spotting, nothing. It's that one point in time. And then after that, it's postmenopause. So every day after that 1 day mark of 12 months without a period, you get into postmenopause from that. So often people will say, I'm in menopause, and they're often talking about perimenopause or postmenopause. Language matters so much because those treatments and how we, identify them, how we treat them is so important as far as those symptoms. So it's important to get the timing right for it.
Absolutely. And you touched on something just then with Black women entering menopause earlier than other races. I want to ask you why that is, but I have one of my good friends went in at like late 30s and was like, I'm having hot flashes, I'm having blah, 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 blah. And her provider was like, it's too early for menopause. That couldn't be it, but never even addressed the symptoms in general. Like, even if you didn't think that was it, why didn't you address the symptoms? But anyway, why do you think Black women enter menopause earlier than other races?
So what that example is it's what got me to where I am at now. I'm from it, that dismissal, that silence, that you're too early, you're too young for this. From it, it's all in your mind. It makes you think that you're crazy from it. And that's so far from the truth. And to unpack the question of why Black women go into menopause earlier, like how to unpack that. And it's layered from it.
Yeah.
Racism, a public health issue, chronic stress, navigating the systematic inequalities in our healthcare takes a toll on our bodies, our reproductive system. We often go into get our first cycle before our counterparts of white from it. And that also impacts when we're going into perimenopause as well. Many Black women, we go untreated from it or undertreated. Just as the example that you gave, we see these symptoms and things from it, but it's wiped off the rug. So it makes you feel like crazy. Why did I bring this up? I'm not going to bring it up anymore. But the truth is behind that accelerates the symptoms, or it leaves them unresolved because, they're still happening. It's going on. I'm going to push through. Because that's what I've been told in trauma. It's going to continue to push through. But they tend to still carry the weight of the world from it. We carry it on our shoulders, on our back, and that stress, and without any support and consequence, that from it impacts our body on that lower molecular level that we don't see, that catches up with us over time.
So another thing that I think happens with Black women, or women in general, actually, but I get a lot of questions from women who've had a hysterectomy. And I try to explain that they still will go through menopause. Can you break that down a little bit better? I can't explain it
Absolutely. So if your ovaries are removed from it, menopause is immediate, and that's called surgical menopause. However, if your uterus was removed but your ovaries were still left, you still go through the hormonal changes, but without a period to track it. So it can truly sneak up on you. It's like, oh my, I'm not having a period. I have nothing else that's going on, but you have these symptoms that kind of sneak up. And the symptoms can be more intense or even abrupt from that. So I want you to think about all the symptoms that we're having and that you may experience: the brain fog, the fatigue from it, the night sweats, and from it, the itchy ears or dry skin. There's tons of symptoms that's present there. It's all from our ovaries. So our ovaries are producing those hormones that we're having that impact from. So even though the uterus is there, the foundation of where those hormones are coming there from, your ovaries are still present. And that's the same, because sometimes I'll get the questions like, I've had one ovary removed, but I have an ovary that's still there. You still going to go through those same signs and symptoms and things that occur. Depending maybe at a different pace than others. And that's something to identify as well, that everyone's journey is unique and at a different pace. So when you have those sudden changes in your estrogen, it can hit hard emotionally, physical from it, and not having that managed with support or hormone therapy. If you want it, or if you choose you want to do something holistic, absolutely fine. There's ways and different ways to to kill a cat, right? From it, so it's not a one shoe all size fits all from that. But just to remember, if you had a hysterectomy, the uterus is gone, so you don't have that sign of I'm bleeding and my having that lining being developed and shutting off. But you can still have your ovaries that's present in there, that's responsible for all those hormone changes that you're going through.
Yes, and thank you for that correction too, because I asked for definitions and still said menopause. It's perimenopausal symptoms that kind of linger. We'll talk about symptoms in a minute, but what's one thing most doctors or providers overlook when treating Black women in menopause?
Our whole story. We are not just symptoms. We, in the context, you think about our culture, our community, our history. As providers, sometimes we can overlook how stress, trauma, systematic neglect shape our symptoms, our thoughts, how we come to, or who we do decide to come to or not. We need care that sees us as a whole woman and not just the numbers or the stereotypes or you're overacting or you're loud or none of that. You need to take a step back and look at us as a whole person with everything that we bring.
Yes, that is 1000% true and so important for providers to understand. I know this podcast is really aimed towards the community, but I think providers need to understand what Black people are saying about our care and how to make care better for us. But now I want to talk symptoms. Everybody wants to talk symptoms, right? So I'm on a lot of these what they call groups on social media talking about menopause, perimenopause, et cetera, et cetera. So common symptoms like fatigue, hot flashes, insomnia, I don't know, those brain fog. But what are the most surprising or even lesser known symptoms of perimenopause?
Yes, key. I recently had done a video, and only because I did the video because I was going through it as well with it. And I was like, what is this, Shakeeka? Come on, let's figure this out. Diving in. So it was body odor. Like, oh my gosh, you feel like you're in teenage all over again. And it goes back to those hormones I was talking about, estrogen, progesterone, and testosterone. Think about as a teenager when all those are revving up. I'm from the South, within North Carolina to be exact. And you go outside and you come back in, and your mom and them always tell you smell like the outdoors. You done been outside. So I was like, wait a minute now, like you have to check yourself. And that's from the same symptoms, those estrogen, those progesterones, and those hormones just kind of kicking in. Where you have this body odor. So if that's happening or occurring to you, or just kind of being prepared, don't feel afraid that you got to switch things up, from those, or detoxing, your arms, or doing different things. It can happen. The other thing is burning tongue, or you may hear burning mouth syndrome, where it's like everything is just on fire, and that's that sensitivity. Or sometimes you'll hear women that come to me like, I feel like I've been sucking on a lemon like all the time. It's just that sour, or thing just kind of sucking up, phase. And again, that dips in with the estrogen. And when you think about what's like dips, one of the biggest things I can talk with anything with symptoms is to track them. Rather you track them on your cell phone, put them on, or if it's paper and pencil, because that really helps to kind of tie in of what your hormones are doing on the levels, because it is that up and down from where you are within that cycle. And you can see certain symptoms kind of come on or fewer depending on where you are. Dental issues with bleeding gums from it. Let's not forget about rage from those. Rage can kind of come out of nowhere. I can be feeling great 1 minute, and next minute, like, oh my gosh, it's complete anger, or you're crying, or
Baby.
yes, I was like, what happened? I'm new from it. And those are some that just kind of sneak up on you. And there are also some that, especially like the rage, because we always can have this stigma that's over there that we're loud, where things can be taken out of place, and so you're afraid to bring those up. Or if you brought, up, that stigma kind of carries over, so it's brushed underneath the rug. And all I can say with all kinds of symptoms, hundreds of symptoms that it can occur, they all are real, and they all are valid, and they all deserve to be recognized as part of our hormonal shift, and that there's something we can do about it if you choose. Or if you choose, not, I want to see how this takes me, you can do that as well. But silence is not, it doesn't help. It doesn't help you, it doesn't help those around you as well. So always speak up, write it down, think about it, find you someone that's reliable, valid, that's going to give you the truth from it, that's really centered around you as well.
Yes, I'm so glad you brought those up, because those are, I feel so seen in this moment, as the kids say. Like brain fog, forget about it. It's over with. Anxiety has increased for
Yes.
sure for me. Palpitations was one that was really surprising to me, that I started having palpitations, and everybody I went to was just like, and now I'm a provider now. Y'all remember I'm a provider too. Everybody I went to still was like, you drink too much caffeine, cut back on your coffee or your tea, and blah, 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 blah. But nah, that's it's really linked to this. Thank you for sharing that with us, and let me, hey, okay, feel seen.
We all.
Okay, so let's talk hormones and treatment, because I know everybody has figured out the symptoms pretty much, right? And we're going to talk a little bit more about symptoms too later when we talk about treatment, but hormones and treatment. Estrogen, as you've already said, is the main hormone for developing and maintaining the reproductive system. And in menopause, you know what happens. Okay, but in the early 2000s, the Women's Health Initiative study caused a lot of fear around hormone therapy, hormone replacement. I'll say, as a provider, I certainly cited that study, because I finished my program in the era of that study, right? So that's what I knew, that's what I learned, and nobody really made a huge effort to correct it that I know of anyway. But anyway, so can you explain what that study actually found and what it means for women today, and Black women especially?
Yes, this study is so important because even from the fallout from the study, it still shapes how providers treat menopause today, especially Black women. And you think about, this study was launched in 1991 and ran all the way through 2005.
Yep.
And we're in 2025 right now. So you think about how, even if we've had tons of more research after that, it's still impacting care. Now, I will say this study was an important study. It did get some good information that kind of came about. I mean, studying menopause in general is important. You don't see a lot of information about it. So it studied over 160,000 postmenopausal women between 50, I think that's around 79 years old. But because of that, it became one of the most controversial studies regarding hormone replacement therapy, from a reduction of the risk of heart disease, fractures, cancer in postmenopausal women. But this is where the problem became from it, and where I see it is that most of the women in that hormonal therapy trial were on average 12 years past menopause, well beyond the ideal window for starting hormones. Our common window, and I state that, of starting hormones is within 10 years of your final menstrual period, whether before or after that. So you want to be within that sweet spot. And the reason that, because we know that we have greater evidence of longevity. It's really going to help to have improvements of your quality of life. So then here comes in the media. They came in and followed that study in 2002, where part of the study was halted because of the alarm bells that kind of went around regarding the risk of breast cancer, heart disease, and clots and things from it. But here's the truth that kind of came along. Absolutely, risks were small from it. They were very small, and some were only found in specific subgroups and not the entire population. And the type of hormone that was used, which was a conjugated equine estrogen, medroxyprogesterone, big words, right? But what that means, it was not the same as our bioidentical or body identical hormones, which are offered to our women today. So we're offering you bioidentical hormones. The timing hypothesis, what I mentioned before, they were outside of that 10 years of menopause, especially before the age of 60, they were outside of that. And then as for Black women, gaps were widened even more. The study was not racially representative. Black women was only made, I think, about 6% of the participants. So that means our bodies, our responses, our health outcomes were largely underrepresented. And that's something that's a theme that we come around from as well. But the fear and that confusion that followed behind that study, providers become more hesitant to prescribe hormone replacement therapy, to place it on board. Black women who already face social and systematic biases, being less argumentative for the treatment, were even more likely to be denied hormone therapy and not offered it at all from that. And that's where, it breaks my heart, and we're continuing to crawl out of this from that. And it matters a lot for Black women as well. When we talked about heart palpitations, we are more likely to suffer from the vasomotor symptoms, hot flashes, night sweats, the heart palpitations. We also face higher rates of cardiovascular disease, metabolic syndrome, sleep disturbances, where we can't sleep at night. Whereas hormone replacement therapy can offer and to help to support protections against those, and increasing our longevity, decreasing our risk from that. So it means all that stands that we're having to rebuild trust. That study was great, put a lot of information out, but now we got to rebuild trust. And it means, as Black women, we deserve updated conversations. We deserve to remove the nuances, removing the fear-based messaging that's often surrounded. Hormone therapy used in the right way, with the right women, with the right dose, can be life-changing, and it can be life-extending. And it's so important to understand what your choices are, because what I do for one person may not be the same for another person who could be having the same exact symptoms. So it's very individualized and really truly pulling back those layers again.
Yeah. And that's really important to life extending. Well, like, we need to really sit with that these things can prolong our lives if done appropriately, correctly. And I know I have this to talk about later, but get you a menopause provider like Dr. Misher, okay? Because people will actually know. Because don't come to Dr. Reagan, because I'm hot too, okay? I'm looking for help. You have to find somebody who this is what they do. And I'm going to send you there if you come see me. Believe it, but everybody won't. So you have to seek out resources that are available to you. We're going to share all of her information later. She has an amazing presence on social media and information tools, resources, etc. We'll share that a little bit later, but I don't want you not to make it to the end of the episode and don't hear that, okay? So, okay, back to hormones. You talked a little bit about why Black women are less likely to be offered hormone therapy. I think it goes back to what you said earlier about access, systematic racism. All of these things also play into that, in addition to not being widely represented in the study. Of course, we're also fighting the same systemic stuff that we fight in every other aspect of our healthcare. So what are benefits versus risks of hormone replacement therapy, especially for Black women?
Yes, and I think when we think about from Black women, oftentimes providers, especially even providers that are Black, and that's one thing I always like to key on, is that finding that right provider that you talked about it as well. It may not always be a Black woman or a Black doctor or a Black physician or whoever it may be, a nurse practitioner. You've got to find somebody that you gel with, that gets you. And the reason why I state that is that oftentimes, as Black women, as Black people, and even counterparts that are helping to treat us, we have the stigma that we're strong enough to deal with it. We're just going to
Mm-hmm.
from it and don't explore options fully. And that should be kind of your first red flag, is that if I only got one option, I mean, there's tons of options out there. At least give me three. Which one is going to best fit me? Of peeling back that. And I think sometimes we can be sitting in a provider's office and we've been sitting there for too long, or we got to go pick up somebody else from an appointment or take somebody somewhere, or I need to get back to work, that we get so frustrated and our time is limited that we forget the small things that we can ask or to advocate for ourselves. Even if it means like, hey, I need to make another appointment, or can we take this to telehealth, or when's the next time I can follow up so we can dive into this a little bit more.
Yeah.
And then when you ask about the risk and benefits of hormone therapy, benefits can include the relief of hot flashes, better sleep, because oftentimes you're waking up in the middle of the night because you're having that hot flash, or you're having that heart palpitation, so you're just not getting your rest that you needed. And our minds are going 50 miles an hour while we're sleeping as well, trying to prepare for the next day or things that we forgot or we didn't do during that day as well. Improved cognition ties into that. I was in the middle of doing a lecture from, I think it was a lecture presentation, but I was in front of people and I was like on a roll, and in mid-sentence, like words were gone. Like I could see them in my head, but they weren't coming out anywhere. And you thinking about like embarrassing, like sitting there, it's like, where'd it go? But I know, like, you feed me my word, please. That happens. Like that improved, that cognition can happen to improve protection of our bones. We talked about that as well with the longevity. As our estrogen levels decrease, estrogen protects our bones and strengthen that with it. So adding that estrogen back can help to protect us from having broken bones, falls. That can be another domino effect where you're in the hospital and other things happen, and it can decrease just your longevity in life from that. Improve vaginal health of everything that we've been talking about. Oftentimes that's one of the biggest things that women come to me and it's like, you know what, it's dry down there, things hurt that didn't hurt beforehand, and I want my life back from it. And those are real things with it. And there's therapy that can assist with that. There's moisturizers. And one thing can tie in there is that not all hormone therapy is systematic hormone therapy. It means it doesn't go throughout your entire body. So if you want to just like, hey, I just want something local, there's options for that. I think the risk from it, one of the biggest things I like to pull in with risk is it depends on timing. We talked about that 10-year window. It doesn't mean that you can't do it. Just means let's talk about it a little bit more. Let's weigh those risks and benefits. Your health history. Do you have a history of blood clots? Were they provoked, unprovoked? Let's talk about that a little bit more. Your family history. Oftentimes people will ask me, my mom has cancer. Does it mean that has breast cancer? Does it mean I can't utilize, hormone therapy? That's not true from it. Let's dive into that. There's still options. Let's talk. Let's dive into and see peel back those layers as well. With all that saying, individualized care is important. It's critical from that. And you deserve a provider who can explain your options to you, that can give you opportunity to think about it and not scare you away from any options. Being individualized and deciding that. And if you need time to think about it, take that time and come back and determine those as well.
That's that shared decision making, right? Like,
yes,
you are a part of this process. But you said, Dr. Misher, so much in there that maybe could be a whole podcast, because the always seeking out a Black provider, that's a whole podcast. Okay.
yes.
Losing words. I teaching in class and I lose a word. I tell the students, hey, y'all the ones in school. You tell me what's word.
Fill in that blank.
Right. So line, run me my line.
Yeah.
Okay. But that was so great. I think I get that question too, though, about options, particularly for people who cannot take hormones in either form, like because I know you said there's systemic ones where you take by mouth, then there are pellets, right? Vaginal pellets, and then the patch. Yeah. But are there options for women who can't take hormones at all? Thank you for tuning in to part 1 of It's Getting Hot in Here. What a lovely conversation with Dr. Misher. I can't wait to come back next week where we talk more about over-the-counter treatment methods, non-traditional, non-hormonal related treatments, and other just life hacks that you can use to make it through this transition in life. See you next Wednesday. The information provided in this podcast is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical advice. Always consult with a qualified healthcare provider before making any decisions about your health. The views expressed in this podcast are those of the host and guests and do not necessarily reflect the opinions or positions of any affiliated organizations.